Yesterday marked day 43 of the Life Esidimeni Arbitration hearings. The inquiry sought to help provide family members with both closure and redress. This after 144 patients died following their relocations from Life Esidimeni facilities. There are also apparently 48 patients not accounted for. Gauteng Premier Makhura said that he has taken accountability. Both he and the Health Minister, Dr. Motsoaledi, have apologized to the families. But to discuss this further, we joined now by Jack Bloom. He is Democratic Alliance's Shadow MEC on Health here in Gauteng. Mr. Bloom, good morning to you. Thank you so much for coming.
Good morning. Good morning.
Now, let's just get your overall view on the arbitrations from the day they started, the witnesses who came to testify, what came out of their testimonies and so on.
Well, first of all, I think it's been an emotional roller coaster from start to finish. We've had the testimony of the relatives of those who died and just how they died and how cruelly they were treated. And, you know, in many cases they died of malnutrition or dehydration. It's just inexcusable. So we had that in the first part of the hearings. And then we had various senior officials who I think shocked us all with their denials and blame game and, you know, talking about collective decision making, and it wasn't their fault and they couldn't have known. I think we were all very disappointed by that. Then finally we've had the politicians, you know, who should also be accountable, and we had finally the testimony former Health MEC Mashlangu, and I think that was quite terrible in its own way, because she blamed her officials, she denied personal accountability, and in fact I think lied mostly through her testimony, and was seen to lie because under cross-examination they caught her out. So that was very distressing to see, because, you know, she was the person in charge of it, and I think primarily to blame. And then of course we had the Premier of this province, and we had Gauteng Finance MEC Barbara Creasy, who surprised us all when she said that in fact there was budget for the mental health project, didn't need to be cut at all. And finally Health Minister Motsoaledi, who I think showed genuine remorse and regret, and it's the burden that he's going to have to bear, that perhaps he could have intervened earlier at some stage to stop this.
But he kept saying that constitutionally he doesn't have the rights to sort of intervene in provincial matters.
Well, you know, he could have intervened more decisively. He could have raised the alarm. It was quite clear that something terrible was happening. There were lots of media reports, and I think that that's the burden that he's going to have to carry, as is for the Premier of this province, Makhura. I think he also could have intervened far earlier, and you know, there was a fulsome apology, and I think it's good that some politicians at least are accepting individual accountability and responsibility, because I think we were terribly disappointed to hear this phrase, oh, it was a collective decision. You know, so nobody is individually to blame. And I think that in future in South African politics, I hope every politician takes personal responsibility.
Yeah, but I believe showing remorse and being apologetic is not what family members want. They want justice at the end of the day. And it appears like there's no logical reason as to why these patients were transferred in the first place. What do you suspect? What could have been the main reasons behind this?
Well, this is what's so amazing. After 43 days of grueling hearings and cross-examination, we still don't have a clear idea what was the motivation behind it. You know, it doesn't appear to have been budgetary, although that was the main reason that was given, because the evidence was very clear that there was a budget for it. It didn't have to do it, and this wasn't saving money anyway. And so why was it driven through so cruelly and against warning from all sectors of society? That, unfortunately, is still somewhat of a mystery. We think that some people might have made money out of this. It really is, you know, appalling that we don't know at this stage. But as you said, justice will only come when all those people responsible are charged, criminally charged, and the charges could range from murder, culpable homicide, fraud, and contravening various mental health acts. Yeah. And I think that this needs to be concluded by the police, the investigation, as soon as possible, and they need to go to court and be sentenced.
But in your opinion, Mr. Bloom, do you think we will ever know the truth behind all of this? We were hopeful that the arbitration hearings might paint a picture as to why this happened, but obviously it was more of a blame game, no one wanting to take responsibility into account.
Well, look, the court case needs to happen, and I think more will come out in that court case, and I hope we see justice there and heavy criminal sentences imposed on the people responsible for this. But let's just also add, the people who also need to be charged are those at the NGOs where the deaths happened. So I think a lot more has still got to come out. But let me just say that Justice Dikhan Moseneke did a magnificent job. I think he handled the proceedings with dignity, and he made sure that people were not let off the hook. And I hope that this whole arbitration process does lead to some form of closure for the relatives of those who died. But of course, nothing will bring back the lives of those who died, and it will serve its purpose. But we move to the next stage now, where the police must complete the investigation and all those culpable must appear in court.
And I think, the sad part is the number might even go up, because there are over 60 people that are apparently missing from these NGOs. What are your findings? Because, in fact, the numbers differ. Some talk about 55, 48, you talk of 62, Section 27 made mention of 12.
Well, this is also distressing. We don't know, the final number of those dead or missing, and I think many of those who are missing are actually dead, unfortunately. I have laid missing person charges individually for 62 missing people, and I think that if we think that most of them are likely to be dead by now because they're very vulnerable and need constant care, the final tally of dead could be over 200, which is unbearable to think about.
Yeah, and we've heard through numerous witnesses, Mr. Bloem, that the process could have been avoided. The minister himself also said that the project should not have happened at all. And he said yesterday that a case could be opened because the transfer of patients was not properly discharged.
Yes, absolutely. He said charged of kidnapping, perhaps, and I think he's right. I think just understand what happened. You had the most vulnerable people in our society, which must be mental health patients. They were taken out from Life Esidimeni in trucks and bakkies and like cattle at an auction. And who knows, some of them went to NGOs where they died. Others might have been abandoned at the side of the road. Who knows what's happened? That's why I think that we need to know every single person that left Life Esidimeni, what was their fate? Are they still alive? Can we still do something for them? And if they did, who was responsible for it?
Yeah, but I was also reading reports that there might be some fraudulent activities also taking place, because 35 of the missing 62 that you have quoted apparently are still collecting their social grants.
Well, that's the mystery as well. It seems that somebody's collecting their grants on their behalf, and there could well be fraud, because they might be alive, they might be dead, they might be in good circumstances or bad circumstances. And this is actually why I laid a missing persons case at the police this week, because I think the police need to get involved and start with those who are apparently still collecting social grants, track them down and see what's happening. And yes, I think fraud could easily be involved. I think there was a financial motive in a lot of what's happened.
Sure, I suppose we wait and see what happens. But we've heard Justice Dikhan Moseneke officially thanking everyone who participated in the hearings. What happens next?
Well, he will obviously make a report, and there will be a financial compensation of some kind, which is likely to be quite expensive for the state. But I think the state needs to do restitution. And most of all, I think that the lessons need to be learned from this. You mustn't have officials saying that they were scared to report ethical violations. They need to speak out in future. Politicians must know that they're individually accountable and that they must listen to the experts, and never ever again must we trash the human rights of the most vulnerable amongst us.
Oh, Mr. Bloem, thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks to Jack Bloem, Democratic Alliance's Shadow MEC on Health, here in Gauteng, of course, giving his perspective on the Life Esidimeni Arbitration hearings that were concluded officially by Justice Dikhan Moseneke last night.